So it's late August, September is right around the corner, and that means I'm getting into that autumnal Halloween spooky season vibe. So today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite gateway films into the season to bring you into that mood, and that's The Company of Wolves from 1984. We're going to talk about this movie, what it's about, why I love it, why I think it deserves more attention than it gets from horror fans, and discuss this recently released Scream Factory 4K Blu-ray. Let's get spooky. How's it going, my friends? Welcome again to the Cobweb channel where we're dusting off the classics. My name is Daniel, and I'm so excited to get into the spooky season with you. This is where I really get so obsessed with horror, but not just horror, the whole autumnal, that whole really cozy feel of apple cider and blankets, fallen leaves, and pumpkin patches. I just love the season so much, and while we talk about horror a lot on this channel, really diving into horror isn't a big change for what we do here. I wanted to kick things off by talking about The Company of Wolves. Now, I saw this movie for the first time last August, and now it's August again, and this was the time when I felt like revisiting it, and I felt like picking up this Blu-ray, because when I first watched this last August, there was no Blu-ray for this movie. I actually watched it on streaming and was sad that I couldn't buy it. And it wasn't long after that this Blu-ray was announced, it came out, and I just hadn't bought it yet because I had watched it so recently. But now August came back around again and I was in that mood. So what's this movie about? Well, it's directed by Neil Jordan, who horror fans might know as the director of Interview with the Vampire, the Anne Rice adapted film. It came out in 1984, and the best way I can describe this movie is it is a fairy tale horror film. It is a horror movie built of folk tales because it's a little bit of a horror anthology, but it's a little odd because it actually has two framing devices. So it kicks off with a modern day family in Britain, and it goes into the dream world of one of the daughters who is asleep. And it goes into this fantasy world out into the woods where she is essentially Little Red Riding Hood. The base of this movie really is the Little Red Riding Hood story, but she's going through her life living out in the woods in this very fairy tale-like world. I love the atmosphere of the woods in this movie. Now, while I might be a little bit inaccurate calling this movie autumnal, saying it's a great autumn movie, because there's not a lot of like orange or fallen leaves or such, but it's just that forest atmosphere and that whole fairy tale feel that makes it feel autumnal to me and gives me that perfect feeling to go into this season with. So she lives out in this world, and her grandmother is actually Angela Lansbury, and her grandmother tells her a collection of stories, and they all involve wolves because her older sister was killed by a wolf, and that's what the people in her village are very afraid of. The wolves. Do not stray from the path, they always say, because the wolves will get you. And it is essentially a werewolf movie. There's the wolves that are hairy on the outside, and those, if they kill you, you'll go to heaven. But then there's the wolves that are hairy on the inside, and those are werewolves, who they break out of their skin and become wolves. And if they kill you, they drag you down to hell. At least that's what Angela Lansbury says in this movie. I'm going to pull this great looking slipcover off and show you the even better original poster art for this film. Absolutely stunning poster showing one of the incredible werewolf transformations that you will find in this movie. This movie has two of the best werewolf transformations I've ever seen in a movie. And it just doesn't get discussed like that very often. This is a movie that horror fans, I just don't feel like they pay very much attention to. And I really think they should, because I absolutely love this movie. It's rated R, but it's so close to being a very kid-friendly kind of a horror film that could be like a great gateway into the genre. But it has just a little bit of gore in terms of some werewolf transformations that I think got it that R rating, which is a little bit odd. These werewolf transformations are so scary. The practical effects are so amazing. I just love the feeling of this movie so much. I love folk tales. I love that aspect of horror. Just the spooky stories that people in olden times out in rural areas would tell each other, sometimes just to scare the children, sometimes because they really believed them. And this is just a great collection of werewolf-inspired folk tales and fairy tales. It's so visually beautiful. I love all the actors in it. Everyone is great. Just The vibe is so perfect. To compare this movie to something, it's really not much like most 80s horror films, except for the werewolf transformations that invoke your mind to something like The Howling or to American Werewolf in London. But it has that very classic feel of 1960s horror films like Hammer, or like Neil Jordan calls out in the commentary, the Roger Corman, Vincent Price, Edgar Allan Poe films. I just said 3 names, the Roger Corman, Vincent Price, Edgar Allan Poe film. There's gotta be an easier way to say that. But I love that recreation of very 1960s horror films, but unlike those, this isn't Gothic, because it's much more forest-based and with cottages and things like that. And that's why I compare it to fairy tales. This really is a perfect fairy tale movie that also functions as a horror film. I love it so much. It casts such a fascinating spell over me. Now, as far as this actual 4K Blu-ray, not one of some of the best 4K I've ever seen. Now, it doesn't really matter that much because this wouldn't be an upgrade for you because this is his first time on Blu-ray, at least in the US. I don't know if there were any foreign Blu-rays, but this was my first chance to get it on Blu-ray. The 4K looks really good. I also checked out the Blu-ray, and I didn't see that much of a difference, to be honest with you. This wasn't one of those 4Ks that really blew me away, but it's already such a great-looking movie that I think you're going to be really visually pleased with it regardless. Now, Scream Factory these days isn't often the best for special features, and that's also the case here. The features aren't that great. There are 2 audio commentaries. I only checked out the one from director Neil Jordan, didn't listen to the whole thing, found it a little bit dry, unfortunately. And then there's a second commentary with, I think, producers or something like that. I don't remember. And then there is an interview with the producer, Chris Brown, and the special effects makeup artist, Christopher Tucker. I haven't checked that out. That's probably pretty cool because the special effects and makeup for this movie are very cool. Then there's a theatrical trailer. There's a still gallery. Not super impressive. Would have liked something a little bit more documentary-like for this film, but I'm so happy to have it not just on Blu-ray, but on 4K. I'm so thankful Scream Factory put this out. They don't put out a lot of movies these days that they haven't already put out, so this was a special thing. I think it's been out on Blu-ray for around 10 months or something like that, but there's really very little coverage on it on YouTube, I found. So I wanted to make this video, shout out why I love it so much and why I think it's a perfect movie to bring you into that spooky season autumnal mode. Now, if you don't want to pick up the Blu-ray, I saw it streaming on a lot of different streaming services, so you can probably watch it pretty easily. But if you're a Blu-ray collector, I've got to recommend this. I think it's a great addition to your Scream Factory collection. You definitely own worse movies on Scream Factory Blu-ray, so I would definitely pick this one up. That's all for The Company of Wolves. Thank you so much for watching. I've got lots more spooky season content coming your way. I've got a very witchy video coming up soon. I really want to talk about some witch films because I've very much been in that mood. Got some Sleepy Hollow content coming out around its 4K release that I'm really excited about. A lot of stuff, a lot of cool horror, spooky vibe kind of things coming to the Cobwebs channel very soon. So if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like this video because it really does help out the channel. Thank you so much for watching. With all that said, don't forget to enjoy yourself today and have some good, spooky, autumnal, cozy fun. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.